wise once said,
Most men walk through life as if they are alone, not just alone in the world, but alone within themselves. They chase power, but they feel powerless. They seek guidance, but they walk without direction. They pray with their mouths, but doubt in their minds. And the reason is simple. They have forgotten what lives within them, not beside them, not above them, not far off in the clouds. Within, there is a presence that lives in you, a flame so ancient, so intelligent, so perfectly designed to express through you, that if you truly understood what it meant to carry it, you would never question your next step again. You were not meant to live as if you are empty. You were not designed to struggle forward, as if the answers are always somewhere else. You are not required to beg for strength you already possess, but you must remember, because the world will try to make you forget. It will teach you to wait for signs, to pray for rescue, to earn the right to be guided. But infinite intelligence, the mind of God, was placed within you the moment you were born, and not as an idea, as a law, as a force, as a voice that doesn't scream, but knows. The tragedy is not that most people are weak. The tragedy is that they do not know who is living in them. So they shrink, they settle, they follow, they mimic, they drift. And all the while, they carry the power that built mountains, parted seas, shaped civilizations, and still wait to be claimed. You do not need to summon this power. You need only to align with it. And the first alignment is this. You must learn to act as if God is within you, because He is. Not when you're perfect, not when you feel holy, not when the world agrees with you, but right now, even in your doubt, even in your weakness, even in your silence, because that presence does not appear when you are ready. It appears when you remember. And remembering isn't emotional. It's not a feeling. It's a decision. And once you make that decision, you do not walk the same again. You do not speak the same again. You do not live the same again. Because now, you walk as a man who knows, I carry the divine, and I act accordingly. To act as if God is within you is not to pretend. It is not an exercise in ego or confidence or religious posture. It is a recalibration of everything: your thinking, your discipline, your posture, your language, your pace, your presence. It is a choice to stop behaving like a man who is lost and begin walking like a man who is already found. Because when you carry the divine within, you are not asking, will I be guided? You are already guided. You are not hoping to be protected. You are protection in motion. You are not waiting for wisdom. You are moving with it, embodied. This means you do not speak with fear behind your words. You do not move with apology in your footsteps. You do not seek permission to exist, to build, to believe. You do not shrink to make others comfortable. You do not ask the world for validation that was already written into your soul by infinite intelligence. To act as if God is within you means you no longer betray yourself. You no longer negotiate with doubt when clarity has already arrived. You no longer delay action when the instruction has already been given. You no longer say, I'm not ready, because you know readiness is not a condition. It's a decision. Acting as if God is within you means you no longer apologize for your calling. You do not need others to understand your urgency. You do not need external support to walk in divine rhythm. You do not ask the mirror, am I enough? Because you carry the answer inside the question. It means you sit differently. You walk differently. You pray less like a beggar and more like a partner. You no longer say, "Please show me." You say, "Thank you for what I already know." When God is within you, you do not need to prove anything, but you must protect everything: your energy, your time, your peace, your thinking. Because when you carry something sacred inside you, your environment must be shaped to match. You no longer eat what weakens you. You no longer listen to people who drain you. You no longer keep company with voices that mock vision. You guard the gate because the gate is holy. To act as if God is within you means you carry a certain spiritual quietness. You don't need to defend yourself constantly. You don't need to explain your every move. You don't need to be loud to be effective. You walk in authority, not because of who you are, but because of who walks in you. And let me tell you, people feel it. They don't always know what it is, but they know when they're in the presence of someone who does not move from ego or fear or popularity. They're in the presence of someone who moves from alignment. That's what it means to act as if God is within you. It's not a claim. It's a consistency. It's not a belief system. It's a behavior pattern. It's not words. It's witness. And that witness speaks louder than anything your mouth could say. So I ask you, have your actions caught up with your identity? Do your habits reflect what you say you carry? Does your tone, your pace, your discipline show the world that you are not alone when you walk? Because the ones who carry the divine do not need to. Once a man begins to act as if God is within him, he no longer lives for approval. He lives for expression, not self-expression, but divine expression. You see, infinite intelligence is not a static force. It does not reside in you like a statue in a temple. It moves, it speaks, it creates, and it requires a vessel. It needs a mind to think through. It needs a mouth to speak through. It needs hands to build through. And if you will not offer yours, it will move to the one who will. Because the divine does not wait on potential. It flows through availability. When God lives in you, you become a channel. You begin to feel thoughts that didn't come from study, ideas that carry more weight than your current level of knowledge, words that arrive faster than your ego can prepare. And if you try to own it, if you say, "Look what I've done," you sever the source. But if you say, "Use me again," the power continues. This is what the world doesn't understand about spiritual genius. It is not man achieving greatness. It is God expressing greatness through man. And that expression only comes through the available and the obedient. So when the divine begins to express through you, you begin to speak differently. Your words stop seeking attention. They start becoming instruments. You begin to write differently. You do not write to impress. You write because the message is already burning and must be released. You begin to move differently. Every decision is shaped by an invisible alignment you no longer question. You begin to sense timing. You say yes when the moment is ripe. You say no without guilt. You're no longer guessing, you're tuned. You may not always feel holy. You may not always feel ready, but that doesn't matter. Because God does not wait for your mood to match your mission. He moves through the man who shows up again and again. He speaks through the mind that remains quiet enough to receive and bold enough to release. And so, the pressure changes. You stop trying to come up with the perfect thing to say. You stop trying to map the entire future. You stop trying to own the outcome. Because your role has changed. You are no longer the source. You are the servant of the source. And in that role, there is no pressure, only obedience. There is no competition, only calling. There's no comparison, only clarity. Because once you realize that the divine is trying to move through you, You stop asking, "Am I worthy?" And you start asking, "Am I ready?" And when you are, you become a walking instrument of intelligence, order, and power, not loud, not showy, not self-important, but so steady, so certain, so aligned, that even your silence starts changing rooms. Because when the divine begins to express through you, you stop performing and you start becoming. And that is when people stop seeing you and start seeing what's moving through you. Let us now expose the lie, the quiet deception that has paralyzed millions of gifted, spiritual, capable people. I'll act when I'm ready, but let me speak it plainly, without softness. You will never feel ready to carry what you were born to carry. Why? Because divine assignments do not arrive at your level of comfort. They arrive at your level of obedience. Readiness is a feeling. Obedience is a decision. And if you live according to feelings, you will die with unused potential. The man who waits to feel worthy, the woman who waits to feel holy, the mind that waits to feel qualified misses the moment, because the divine never gave you instruction based on your mood. It gave it based on your alignment. And when that alignment is felt, you must move immediately. You don't act because you understand. You don't act because you feel perfect. You act because the signal was given. And the signal is not sent twice. Every calling arrives with a short-lived gate, a spiritual window. And those who act inside the gate become instruments of power. Those who delay watch the window close, not out of punishment, but because momentum was passed on to the one who moved. You must stop negotiating with your emotions. You must stop waiting for your circumstances to confirm your calling. You must stop assuming that God will delay his plan until your insecurities are satisfied, because he will not. The moment you receive the inner knowing that this is the time, that this is your message, that this is your opportunity, you are accountable. And the man who delays that accountability, who says, "Maybe later," who says, "When I feel more confident," who says, "When I have more proof," has already disqualified himself from the anointing, because power flows through the ready, not the perfect. And readiness is not what you feel, it's what you decide. So I ask you, are you waiting for more signs? Are you holding back your voice because you fear being misunderstood? Are you withholding action because you haven't figured out step 5, when step 1 is still undone? Are you still asking for confirmation after being shown what to do again and again? If so, understand this: you do not lack clarity. You lack commitment to what is already clear. And clarity without commitment is torment. You will feel it every morning, the knowing, the pull, the guilt, the ache, not because you're cursed, but because you are chosen, and ignoring the call. Do not ask for the calling to come again. Act on the one that already came, because the divine does not waste energy. It will not keep giving instruction to a mind that waits for emotional alignment first. The moment you say yes without full understanding, without full preparation, that is when everything begins to align. Resources begin to arrive. Confidence builds in motion. Power flows to your hands because they're already moving, and the fear that ruled you starts falling away, not because it disappears, but because it cannot keep up with your pace. You must act before you feel ready, because readiness is the reward of obedience, not the prerequisite. Move first, and everything you thought you needed will begin to meet you in the path, because that's how the divine works. Faith is not proven by stillness. Faith is proven by motion. So I say to you, one final time in this chapter, do not wait until your hands stop shaking. Move while they're shaking. Do not wait until your voice feels steady. Speak while it trembles, because the man who obeys in his fear will one day walk in such power that fear will no longer recognize him. There is a kind of power that cannot be faked. It does not come from wealth. It does not come from titles. It does not come from how many listen when you speak. It comes from who you are before you open your mouth, from the weight you carry in silence. And that weight, true weight, only comes when a man has remembered that God is within him. Most people raise their voices to be heard. The man who walks with inner authority speaks softly, and still, everything leans in. He does not need to sell himself. He does not need to be validated. He does not need to prove that he belongs, because he already knows. This kind of man does not speak to impress. He speaks when necessary. He listens more than he talks. He does not enter every debate. He does not explain truth to those committed to misunderstanding it. He does not wrestle with noise, because noise is no match for presence. And presence, true presence, is not the result of charisma. It is the consequence of alignment. The more aligned you are with what lives inside you, the less desperate you become to be seen on the outside. You carry spiritual gravity. People feel it when you walk into a room. They cannot define it, but they respect it. They sense that your confidence doesn't come from preparation, but from possession. You are possessed not by fear, but by purpose, not by performance, but by presence, not by needing to be known, but by being already known by the one who lives within you. This is why the man who walks with God inside no longer acts like he's searching. He walks like he is found. Not everything, but the one thing that shapes all others. His confidence is not loud. It is calm. It is anchored. It cannot be bought. It cannot be faked. And it cannot be explained to those who haven't tasted it. This is the paradox. The closer you come to the divine within, the less you need to declare it. Your stillness becomes your sermon. Your decisions become your doctrine. Your walk becomes your witness. Because when you no longer need to convince the world of your power, the world starts responding to you in ways it never did before. Opportunities flow faster. Opposition feels weaker. Criticism shrinks in importance. And peace becomes your constant environment. Not because life is easy, but because you're steady. Confidence is not noise. Authority is not volume. And spiritual alignment does not scream. It moves differently. It pauses. It breathes. It speaks when it's time, and not a second earlier. It answers when it's called, but never chases applause. It builds slowly, but what it builds lasts forever. So if you are still trying to be loud enough to be respected, still trying to outwork your insecurity, still trying to prove you carry something valuable, stop. Be still. Be consistent. Be faithful to what you already carry. Because the loudest man in the room is not the most powerful. The most powerful man in the room is the one whose silence makes others uncomfortable, because it reminds them of what they've forgotten within themselves. Let them feel it. Let them notice your calm. Let them misunderstand you, mislabel you, misjudge your restraint. You are not here to impress. You're here to embody. And once you do, your silence becomes louder than their performance ever could. Let's stop for a moment. You say you want to walk in power. You say you want to live with conviction. You say you're waiting for the right time to begin acting like God is within you. But tell me, what happens when you forget? Not in theory. I mean, in your real life. What happens when you wake up and don't remember who you are. You shrink. You second guess. You rehearse conversations that haven't happened yet. You let one comment from a small person shape your entire sense of worth. You scroll your mind instead of commanding it. You look in the mirror, not for vision, but for permission. You start asking weak questions like, am I ready? What if I'm wrong? What if they think I'm too much? Who do I think I am? And that's the moment you've already lost. Not because the world is against you, but because you've stepped out of alignment with what lives inside you. The shrinking happens fast. It starts in your posture. Then it moves to your voice. Then it touches your decisions. And soon, you are no longer living. You are surviving, managing, maintaining, drifting. And you'll justify it. You'll say things like, I'm just being humble. I don't want to be arrogant. Maybe I should wait until I'm more experienced. I'm just tired right now. But deep down, you know the truth. You're not tired. You're disconnected. You forgot. You forgot that you carry something infinite. You forgot that silence doesn't mean absence. You forgot that confidence isn't noise. It's remembering who sent you. And in that forgetting, you trade your fire for fog. Let me show you what that looks like in real life. You had the idea, but you didn't act. You felt the nudge to call, but you let the fear of awkwardness win. You had the urge to build, but you waited for more resources. You had the strength, but you shrunk yourself to fit their expectations. You heard the inner yes, but you asked for 3 more confirmations just to be safe. And now, you're restless. You're replaying everything. You're exhausted, not from action, but from delaying action, because nothing drains a soul faster than knowing what to do and doing nothing. This is what forgetting looks like. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, subtle, daily, deadly. And that's what the enemy of your life wants. Not to destroy you with one blow, but to erode you slowly by making you forget what's already inside you. So how do you stop shrinking? You remember. You remember by how you sit, by how you speak to yourself when no one's listening, by how you respond when fear shows up knocking at your door, by how quickly you act when that divine urge stirs something in your chest. You remember in your behavior, because belief is nothing without embodiment. You cannot claim to walk with God and still crawl through life like you are powerless. So if you've been shrinking, if you've been hiding, hesitating, apologizing for your own fire, this is your wake-up call. Stand up. Speak slower. Breathe deeper. Start the project. Say no with your chest. And walk into the next room like you're not the only one walking in, because you're not. And the moment you remember who lives within you, the shrinking stops. And the world has to make room for a version of you it hasn't seen in a very long time. There is a way a man walks when he is empty, and there is a way he walks when he knows he's not alone. When a man walks with nothing inside him, he flinches, he hesitates, he over-explains. He watches others before deciding what to be. He responds to pressure instead of applying it. And worst of all, he follows a path made for someone else. But the man who walks as if God is within him, he doesn't just walk differently. He moves the air around him. He doesn't ask for permission to take up space. He doesn't announce his presence. He is his presence. When he enters a room, people notice. Not because he's loud, but because he's undeniable. He doesn't wear power like a costume. He wears it like skin, natural, necessary, effortless. You see, the man who walks as if he is not alone doesn't move with arrogance. He moves with authority. And there's a difference. Arrogance says, "Look at me." Authority says, "I see clearly. I move accordingly." Arrogance inflates itself. Authority is grounded, certain, silent, dangerous in its stillness. When you walk as if God is within you, you slow your pace, not because you're lazy, but because you don't chase anything anymore. You stop running from silence. You crave it. Because silence is no longer empty. It's where the next instruction lives. You speak with intention. Fewer words, more weight, no fluff, no insecurity hiding behind the tone. You look people in the eye, not to challenge, but to reveal. I'm not here alone. You stop apologizing for your presence. You stop shrinking to be accepted. You stop asking, "Is this okay?" You start living like you've already been sent. This is what happens when the God within becomes not just an idea, but an atmosphere. You create inner gravity. You attract what is aligned. You repel what isn't. You carry peace that no storm can touch. Because you don't draw from the outside world anymore. You walk as if the voice that made galaxies also walks with you. And once that becomes real, you don't look for signs. You become the sign. So the next time you walk into a meeting, into a decision, into a conversation that used to shake you, remember who's with you and walk like it. No more looking around to see what others are doing. No more searching for the right vibe to match. No more giving your power away to the loudest voice in the room. You walk with the quiet power of a man who knows, I am not alone. I never have been. And everything I need to say, build, become, is already in motion within me. Walk like your footsteps carry weight. Walk like your silence is deliberate. Walk like you're not moving through life hoping things will work out. Walk like you are walking with the one who wrote the outcome. Because you are, and the sooner your body reflects what your spirit already knows, the more unstoppable you become. Now, when you say God is within you, when you believe in divine power, when you want to walk in alignment with infinite intelligence, you must make room for him. Have you cleared the space? Have you silenced the noise? Have you removed the distractions that block the signal? Because if your mind is full of fear, if your calendar is full of things that drain you, if your environment is full of voices that mock your calling, don't tell me you're aligned. Don't tell me God is within you. If he is, then where is the space for him to speak? You cannot host the divine in a crowded house. You cannot carry infinite intelligence in a schedule ruled by distraction. You cannot hear what's sacred if all you listen to is noise. This is why most people never feel the power they claim to believe in, because their lives are too full of everything except what matters. They say they want clarity, but they never sit in silence. They say they want answers, but they never stop consuming input long enough to receive one. They say they want to hear God, but they've handed their attention to the world. Let me be clear. Your life is too loud for a whisper to survive. And God doesn't yell. He waits. He waits for the space to be cleared. He waits for your nervous mind to quiet. He waits for the chaos you've normalized to be released. He waits for your real yes, not spoken, but demonstrated. So what does that look like? It looks like waking up and listening instead of reacting, taking 10 minutes, not for more motivation, but for sacred stillness. Saying no to conversations that pollute your peace. Cutting ties with environments that cheapen your energy. Fasting, not just from food, but from everything that clouds your vision. Guarding your ears like gates. Watching what you consume, not because you're fragile, but because you're carrying something holy. You don't need to add more to your life. You need to subtract what's blocking your power, because the God within you doesn't shout over your distractions. He waits for room. And when you clear it, he fills it. And suddenly, you think more clearly. You know what to say without rehearsing it. You feel strength without forcing it. You speak with weight, even in soft words. You move with peace, even when there's pressure. But only when space has been made. And that space isn't just physical. It's emotional, spiritual, energetic. Ask yourself, what am I holding on to that crowds my spirit? What relationships have expired, but I still carry? What guilt, shame, regret, and past versions of myself am I dragging like dead weight? What patterns am I stuck in, not because they serve me, but because I'm afraid of the stillness that will follow if I let them go? That's the hard truth. Some of you keep your lives loud because silence would force you to hear what you've been avoiding. But in that silence is where God lives. In that stillness is where alignment begins. In that open space is where your next instruction is waiting. So if you truly believe He is within you, start proving it with what you remove. Because the clearer the room, the louder the whisper. And the louder the whisper, the more unshakable your steps become. Make room. He's already there. Now let him move. There comes a moment in every life when the questions must stop. The begging, the wishing, the searching, the restless prayer that sounds like, when will someone help me? When will the way become clear? When will I be given the power? And the answer, though few are willing to hear it, is this: you were not meant to keep asking. You were meant to become the answer. You were not created to chase certainty. You were designed to embody it. You were not placed on this earth to wonder who will rise. You were placed here to rise yourself, so others remember they can too. But here is the tragedy. Most will never rise, not because they lacked opportunity, but because they never believed they were chosen to become the solution they waited for. They waited for the right man to lead, the right mentor to appear, the right door to open. But what if the door is not something you knock on? What if you are the door? What if the answer you keep searching for in the world has been asking for permission to live through you all along? You don't need more time. You don't need another sign. You don't need to be discovered. You need to decide. Decide to walk into the unknown with the confidence of one who knows he is not empty. Decide to stand where others tremble. Decide to speak when the moment calls, even if your voice has never been used that way before. Decide to carry your assignment, even when your hands still shake. Because the shaking does not disqualify you. The fear does not mean you're on the wrong path. The doubt does not cancel your destiny. The only thing that separates the man who becomes the answer from the man who dies still waiting is decision. Decision to act when it's unclear. Decision to trust what was given to him in silence. Decision to carry the divine not just privately, but publicly. So ask yourself, are you waiting for someone else to carry what was assigned to you? Are you hoping another man will step forward so you don't have to feel the pressure? Are you waiting to be told what you already know? You say you believe God is within you. Then why are you still living as if He is silent? The truth is, He has spoken, and now He waits, not to lead you, but to lead through you. There are people watching you right now, not for entertainment, but because your next move gives them permission to remember their own calling. There are situations waiting not for the right idea, but for your alignment to unlock the timing. There are generations that will either rise or remain buried, depending on whether you act now or pass the wait to someone else. And so I tell you, you've prayed enough, you've studied enough, you've begged enough. Now, you become the answer to the question that once kept you up at night. Become the voice that breaks confusion. Become the calm that steadies the storm. Become the movement that triggers alignment in everyone watching. And once you do, you'll stop wondering when God will show up, because you'll realize He already did. He showed up when you did. You've heard enough. You've waited long enough. You've hesitated long enough. And now you must walk. Not because you have all the answers, not because you feel strong, not because the path is smooth, but because you've been chosen to carry something greater than certainty. Conviction. And conviction is not a feeling. It's a posture, a decision, a spiritual contract. You walk not to find clarity, you walk until clarity finds you. You walk until your habits match your identity. You walk until your fears learn your name and stop bothering you. You walk until your silence speaks louder than their noise. You walk until your face looks like someone who has seen God and remembers. Because that's what this journey is. It is not a sprint. It is not a sermon. It is not a moment of inspiration. It is a way of life. And every step you take from this day forward will either confirm that God lives within you or betray it. So how do you walk? You walk like the man who no longer apologizes for his pace. You walk like the woman who no longer explains her yes or her no. You walk like someone who has burned the need for validation and now moves by alignment alone. You walk when it's hard. You walk when it's quiet. You walk when it feels like no one sees it, because you know the one who sent you still watches. You walk with eyes that no longer scan for comparison. You walk with a voice that no longer shakes when it speaks the truth. You walk with hands that are steady, not because they've never failed, but because they now move with purpose. And here's what will happen. People will ask, what changed? And you won't explain. Because it wasn't a moment. It wasn't a conversation. It wasn't a technique. It was a return. A return to who you were before the fear, before the forgetting, before the smallness, before the delay. A return to the one truth they could never take from you, that God lives in you, and that changes everything. So walk until the questions stop, until the room shifts, until the doors open, until your life becomes the loudest proof that something divine is moving through you. Walk until you no longer have to convince anyone, because when a man carries the presence of God within him, he becomes unmistakable